It's top of the hour. Let's get rolling. What we
All
got
right,
on
guys.
stage for today?
Welcome to, Dan reminded me, this is season 2, episode 8 of Baseline Tech Talk Tuesday. And if you are joining us for the first time today, you can catch all the previous episodes. Dan usually puts the recording to YouTube within about 24, sometimes 48 hours. And that's on YouTube. The channel is Baseline Web Training, all one word, on YouTube. Every episode that we have produced is on YouTube, as well as other training videos that Dan's making. I did ask Dan, there aren't any new training videos this week, but you can catch all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's because I'm doing 5 live training classes a week right now. So kind of got a little different focus on that one. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's Dan Conger. He's our training manager. We have Chris Wright, VP of Sales. And then our special guest today is Brandon in support. And what we're going to talk about is log files and accessing the log files, how to access the log file, what is a log file, how to read the log file, because this is something that is a common question that support gets. And we really feel like if we were to record the process, we can sort of teach and show you guys how to access this log file so that if you have a question about what might be happening under the hood of your controller, you can self-serve that information and you won't need to contact support and have them do it for you. So with that, Dan, let's hand it over to you.
Awesome. I want to delve into that under the hood, because I think what's kind of cool about this is this also, while we want to enable people and allow them to learn how to do this on their own, I think it really goes to some of the engineering and some of the information that our controllers hold. And we can get pretty detailed information about what's going on. And I think, again, super valuable. And it's valuable to end users, but it's also, support can use it as a tool to help.
Yeah, I've accessed the log files a few times myself. And, we do record every function of the controller while it's happening. From zones turning on to programs starting to, flow readings, moisture sensor readings, when somebody accessed it or got online with it. It's pretty detailed information, and a single month can generate tens of pages of line item data that sometimes is difficult to go through and filter and understand. So we're going to teach how to interpret it.
Right on. Yeah. So we're going to start with a specific thing that we're going to be looking for. So we had a scenario where we wanted to get a little bit more information about zones running in a managed by flow. So we're going to kind of reiterate, managed by flow is that ability of the controller to come up to the design flow of, let's say if it's a design flow of 100 GPM, to find zones that will fit into that 100 GPM, but not exceed it. So it might pick 425 GPMs or 250 GPM zones and create a list and then run off of that and then keep that going. So we're going to look for that information, but that's only a little bit of information that we're going to talk about. And I just saw something out of the corner of my eye. There's something peeking out of Andy, what is that in your pocket?
Yeah, Andy, what is that?
Don't wake her up.
Is that a flamingo in your pocket?
Oh, jeez.
Or are you just happy to be here? Look at that. Nice in the weeds, Conger.
I know. I just immediately went squirrel.
There
we go.
Oh no,
you had
still
it.
Blurry. All right, move on.
There we go.
Okay.
Enough antics.
So with that, Brandon, I'm going to have you walk me through the steps on what we're going to do. So I'm going to share one of my screens, and right now it's just this one screen we're going to be sharing off here on the left. So first thing we got to do is we got to get the file, right?
Yes, you do need to get the file. So
let's do that by logging into App Manager. Now, so the question for you is, I'm going to do this from App Manager, but is there another way to do this?
There is another way. Yeah, you can get this information from the controller by going into the advanced dial position and going into data management. You can pull the export that has backups and the event logs in there.
So in the event that my controller is not connected to Base Manager, this information is still stored locally, right?
It is still stored locally,
Beautiful.
yes. And if you don't have a controller on relatively newer firmware, this admin manager does not show controllers on firmware version 12. So if you do have any firmware version 12 controllers, you can reach out to support and get this file, or you can go to the controller and pull the export.
Okay, cool. So I've got App Manager open. What, am I going to go into Base Manager or mobile app? Where am I going?
No, you're going to go down to where it says admin. We actually call this admin manager, and you're going to
Okay.
go to manage base station 3200s.
Because that's specifically what we're looking for is a base station 3200. So
Yes.
then my demo controller, this is the list of all my controllers in my training class, but I want to go to this demo 3200, which is the one I have here in my office. So I clicked on that. And then what am I doing next?
So there's a download files section down towards the
Oh,
bottom.
there we go. Uh-huh.
Yep. And you can choose the file type, and you have a couple different options. Monthly event file is what we want. Now, when you're downloading this, it's not for a month, it's for the month. So when you download the file, it's going to give you from the beginning of the month up until the date that you pull it. So there may be some listings in the choose file section. If support or someone within baseline that has a super user goes into access that we have and pulls this to our server, it will show up, but it's going to be for that month, for the month from the beginning.
So, okay. So if this is what I pulled yesterday, but if I pull it again in 15 days, those will still be here. And then I could get the latest from the controller, which would be from the 15th to the 1st. So, okay, good.
Yep. And that shows, I believe, the first 5. I believe it shows up to 5. And after that, if you pull more logs, those older ones are still going to be on our server and they're still available. So if I were to go check on the company, I could go back and for, if the controller had been online for 2 years, right? And for whatever reason, we wanted that data from a further time back, it's accessible, but this only shows the 5 most recent pulled event files.
Okay. And I suspect that people are going to, something happened last week or didn't happen last week. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be I expect most people it's going to be relatively current, although it sounds like they do have the possibility to go back considerably further, even though it's probably more
right
what happened last night or what happened this week.
We store 2 years worth of data? Is that right, Brandon?
It's a while. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's a while.
Okay. So I'm going to download this, and I got to choose a file, and then I'm going to download it, and it's going to save the file. Okay. So we're going to save the file, and then once I've saved that file, then I need to open it up. So now we're going to have a zipped folder in this event file. And when I open that up, now I have an event file. Now, what I kind of noticed is this is a CSV file, and it's a little different than an Excel file, but the default for Windows machines is it's going to open with Excel.
Yep.
Okay. So let's take a look at it with Excel and see what that looks like. You have another version another way that you like to look at it.
I do.
And let me bring that over to the right window. Okay, so we've got an event file, and I'm going to leave this minimized because I'm going to bring something else up in here in a little bit.
Okay.
So let's see. Okay, so we've got a couple of columns here. I've got this B column, a C column, a D column, and an E column. There's a lot of codes in here. What can you tell us about these codes that are popping up in here?
So we have the date and time stamp. It is in military time, so it will go from 0:00 all the way up to 24. And the B column is who is sending the log, so to speak. And then the C column tends to be statuses. And then the D column is going to be just like system, base manager, things like that. There's a more official term for it in the explanation of event file abbreviations that's on baselinesystems.com. So you can see that it has subject, action, trigger, like that. When you're looking in the logs, however, you'll start to notice that certain columns are going to be your program, your zone, your flow meter. Other ones are going to be, what the action was, if it was a configuration change, or if it's watering, if it's done, things like that.
Okay. So I just brought up it's a file called explanation of event file abbreviations. So we've got that split screen there. So here we've got the column B, which what it looks like it's an alarm, a cell modem, a flow meter.
Yeah, Dan, you may have to zoom in just a little bit on that.
Okay, thank you. Good call.
Just grab like one column maybe, or zoom into one column.
We'll do that.
And one thing that I've noticed too, looking at the CSV file, it's showing 2/1/2021, and then the time stamp it's all zeros. So this is at midnight, what the status was for all of the devices connected to the controller, correct?
Correct.
So
yeah.
you got zones 1 through, I don't know how many zones you have configured on your demo controller, Dan, but it's showing you ZN is zone, and it's showing you what the status is for that zone at midnight for every zone. That's why there's so many zero timestamps.
Exactly. Right. If there's multiple lines, then it'll expand out like that. You'll notice that in the event logs, the controller will show that the zones are in done at midnight. That tends to be a daily occurrence. And it's just a way that the controller was designed. And it's not really indicative of anything in particular, like the way you have it configured or anything. The controller just sets all of these to done internally, and it shows up in the log. So you'll see that on a daily basis around midnight. They're all zone, done, system, and then have all your zones listed out there. So
I've found that for myself, since I am not in these event logs very often, I'm definitely not Neo in the Matrix like you are, being able to just kind of see what's the code cascading there.
Right.
This abbreviation file is essential. So being able to know that ZN means zone, or ZP, which means a primary zone. Well, that could make a big difference, because ZP isn't always as intuitive to description. Or in column C, RN means run, but what was the other one? Was SR in column C? That's start. Oh, okay, got it. There's only that availability. So Andy has the link to this document and the instructions that we can drop in the chat for you, and I'll put it in the YouTube notes as well. So I think between this and the event file, we can have some good information.
And just to add to this, some of the few times I've used this event file is because someone is asking me, maybe the system ran or didn't run, or there was a human maybe that could have made some changes and they want to know. And so typically I have looked at this chart to find, what the keyword is, if you will, and then run a control F for find or search in that document. So you could look for an abbreviation. I can't remember which one is user. And then if you search the document for that abbreviation, you can jump to the first sort of instance where it's recording, user, and see what the timestamp is.
Yeah, so the configuration changes are labeled as CC, and you can find all those configuration changes. However, the only specifics we can see currently is whether or not that configuration change, perfect example right there, was made from base manager, as you can see in the D column, or if it was made at the physical controller.
But that still is enough information.
With the date timestamp, right?
Right.
So
and that
at 5:54 on 2/3.
Yeah, and you'll see
in the future.
Yeah.
Roads? Where we're going, there are no roads.
Hey, we're going to save that one until the end. That's our outro today, Chris.
Okay. Wrong day. All right, go on. Sorry.
No worries. That's all good. So Brandon, we wanted to talk about this managed by flow. So I think one of the next questions you're probably going to ask people is like, when, because how many lines do we have in this one? Let's take a look at how deep this goes. So we've got 6,503 lines of information in here, and that's a month. And that, as Chris alluded to, there could be a lot more. So
Yep.
So I'm going to tell you, well, it was the 14th. So the 14th and sometime in the evening. So we're going to come into the 14th, and let's scroll down to the 14th. And so we're talking about a water window and zones that we're running. So here's the first one that runs on the 14th at the top of the screen. It's about 8 or 9 o'clock. So we're going to scroll right here. We've got 0 time. So let's scroll till we find 9 o'clock.
Yeah, so we should see a section where the program zones, as you can see there, go into waiting. And then you have the program start line.
I'm going to pause you there.
Okay.
So waiting, how do you see waiting? And give me a line number and what says waiting.
Okay. It appears.
Is it 2522? Is that what the WA means?
Yep. Column Charlie. Correct.
Okay. So we could look in the chart on the right to find that WA means wait down here at the bottom. Okay. So that means that at exactly at 10 p.m., a zone started waiting. So that was ZN for zone, WA for wait, and what SY is?
System.
System? Okay.
Yep. You'll see system on pretty much all the operations. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then what can you tell us on zones that we're waiting looking at this one? So I'm going to let's highlight all these ones that have WA.
Yep. So you can see in the echo column these zones in the program, and then the following columns you have program 2, and then in G golf you have WH. This is a relatively new addition. We are making changes and adding things to these event files all the time. So this WH is telling us who initiated the operation. So in this instance, you see program 2 initiated the operation. In other instances, you might see that it was initiated from something like base manager.
Oh, okay. So you kind of brought up an interesting comment that the WH, because I'd looked for that earlier and I didn't find that on this list. And as you and I discussed earlier, this is a living document. And as the engineers make changes to it, it's going to continue. This document will continue to change and grow as that code or the abbreviations, if you will, change.
Yes, and this one is particularly important to my job responsibilities on a day-to-day basis. So it's something that we will be updating as engineering makes changes, as new iterations of firmware come out.
Okay. Now, something that I noticed in this. Well, what was the next thing we had in this one after this was the when we come down here to zone to line 2542, what we got a ZN for zone, and what's RL?
That is running list. So if you wanted to know what zones the controller had turned on at a given time, you could pull up the log and view the running list. So we know at that date and timestamp, zones 34, 35, 37, and 38 were currently watering, or at least the controller was telling the bycoder to activate the valve solenoid.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So now if a zone didn't run, would we have two places to get that information? Would that, if a zone couldn't run because there was an electrical issue, pardon me, would that show up in this file?
It won't. No. If there's an alarm, it'll show up, in the normal places. And then we used to have alarms built into the event file, but we've since separated them. So in the same admin manager location, you can pull an alarms file that also show any historical alarms, even if they've been cleared for the date range you select.
Dan, any chance you can jump back to Chrome and show us that?
Yeah, I can. So let's see. So that was, we did the monthly event file. So, and then there's the alarms file right there.
And this one is a little bit different, as if you click on it, it actually allows you to choose the date range. So remember, we only store 90 days of this type of historical data in the controller locally. So if you're trying to pull something further than that, you're not going to have any luck. But if it's something within that 90 days, in the 90 days is a soft 90 days. It depends on the configuration of the controller. Larger controller configurations have more data, thus that available storage gets filled up faster. So you may not have a full 90 days. It may be slightly less than that. It just depends on the configuration.
Okay. So I guess what I was thinking is a combination of using that event file and alarm file, or even just looking at your alarms and alerts that pop up on your quick view dashboard. Yep. There's a lot of information that you can use to sleuth things out rather than just going, I don't know what happened. Nice. Okay, and then what was this next line down here, this 2543? What's going on with that one?
So the master valve will also have a separate line item for the running list. So you have a running list for zones and you have a running list for master valves. Okay.
So if I'm looking at this right, at 10 o'clock, program 2 comes up with a start time. And while it's verifying everything that needs to operate, it's put the zones in that program in wait. And then it has gone down and because, at 10 o'clock, you would expect the first zone to turn on, right? So it identifies the zones in that program at 10 o'clock. Then it identifies the run list. That's the concurrent zone operation, correct? Essentially, right? And then at 10:01, you can see that zones 34, 35, 37, and 38 actually start to run with the master valve 1, right?
Yep, which I think mirrors the color that you would see on the display, right? When that program runs, they all go yellow.
Yep.
Waiting, and then must be at the top of the next minute. Those zones turn blue, the rest stay yellow, and it's following that sequence.
Boom. Yep. Exactly.
Nice. Totally under the hood, right? We're
So you visually see it with the color code at the display of the controller or in Base Manager, but we can see it under the hood as well, as you all determined it, identified it as when the operation's happening, so we can verify.
Yeah, this is really the nitty gritty that we're getting into, and this is beneficial because in a non-managed by flow instance, your program's going to just run from start to finish numerically. In a managed by flow situation, based on your mainline design flow, the controller is just going to work with that and your concurrency in order to be the most efficient possible. So as opposed to starting from top to bottom, as you're viewing it in like your program and Base Manager, it may kick on a seemingly random order of zones, but it's adding those zone design flows together to get the most out of your irrigation and make the most of the time, really.
Very cool.
Nice. So a tremendous amount of information in here. I want to show just a whole, all of this. And if we kind of look at the subject column, but the actions, right? So we've got configuration change, connections, rain delays, the running list, the rain switch. So there's just data on each one of these points that we can suss out, we can extract out to work with.
Yep. So Dave Shane typed in a question. It says, I assume the zone stop time is also logged, which is true, right?
It is.
When that zone sequence of 34, 35, 37, 38 is done watering, then at that date time stamp, it will go to DN, correct?
Yep. Each individual zone, just like the start, gets its own stop line as well. So how each individual one went into waiting, each individual one had a line for start, each individual one has a line for stop, and the program as well, where you'll see a program stop, and then TX for text, it'll actually say finished to mark the end of the program.
Okay. And then the follow-up question is this the only place to see the order in which stations ran?
It is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
So you can get an idea as to how they're going to run by looking at the design flow for your mainline and looking at the design flow for the zones, and then looking at your program, because the program should still start from the top and work its way down. However, it's just going to, if there's zones that are too large, say it's running 20 already of an available 40 gallons per minute. If the next zone in the sequence is 40 gallons a minute and it's going to put it over that mainline design flow, it will skip. So you can look at it and get a good idea, but if you don't look at the log is really the only hard proof where you can see exactly what's going on.
There's one more spot that is not going, you're not going to get it down to the minute, but the zone activity report will show you visually. And it's actually quite handy. Again, you won't see it down to the minute, but you sort of have what you might consider like a waterfall report. What zones are running at what time. And I don't know if we can show that at this time, but in Base Manager under reports, you'll look for zone activity, and then you'll see a list of all the zones. And
it'll give you the color code as they operated, right?
Right.
Color coding consistent across the whole platform. Yep. Very cool. All right. One other thing that I noticed, Dan, if you go back to App Manager, the admin, the program summary.
Okay.
Yep. This is actually a good one. There's a lot of requests that come in to have this document. So it's a good point, Chris.
Okay, so file type program summary.
Yep. And one important thing to note with this program summary is that this program summary doesn't immediately get rewritten by the controller because it's a separate file. There's a file with the current configuration, and when you make a configuration change, it immediately updates that file. In case of a power cycle, it reboots and it still has that configuration. However, this program summary file does not get written quite as fast. So if you have a recent configuration change, even within a couple of hours per se, and you download this, it may not have that recent configuration change.
Okay. I think my controller just went offline, so I'm going to have to leave it. So,
yeah, but that's one that you can, it has all of the information, again, in an Excel that shows you what zones are on which program, what their runtime is, when their start times, the moisture sensors. It visually shows you everything that is attached to the controller and what the corresponding current programming is, which is helpful.
Yeah, tons of detail, tons and tons of detail. And when I'm working on issues with why my controller did not irrigate, or a specific program isn't running, or it's behaving abnormally, I pull the program summary to look at the entire controller programming from a glance. In certain situations, as if I'm working on a controller that might have 70 programs, I don't want to look through, 70 different programs. I can pull up that program summary, and from a glance, I can see everything with a tremendous amount of detail. I mean, if you have the zones geolocated, it shows the latitude and longitude in there. It shows the bicoder version, which no one would really need to know because that's just a version built into the bicoder itself. There's a ton there.
Yep, good info. I was expecting us to get inundated with questions today, and it's been kind of quiet. But
either that or everyone's asleep.
I know. They're like, oh, spreadsheets.
I was thinking it was the fire hose effect.
Well, maybe so.
It could be.
We baffled them with, well, I can't swear on
brilliance.
And I wouldn't. I also don't consider myself a Excel professional, so that's why I prefer to use Notepad++, because the data is just a little bit more organized for me, and I prefer the search functions and some of the other functions. And if you are an Excel pro, you may use Excel more often to view these files.
So I want to add to that one. You've been saying when we've been talking this last week, you said Notepad++.
Yep.
And that's not the notepad that's built into Windows machines. It's a open source software that you can download, and it's basically a juiced up version of Notepad. And I just found it as a freeware download. So that's what you're mentioning.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. We have sunk to the bottom of the hour that quickly. Wow. Who would have known that spreadsheets could be, or CSV files could be that
entertaining?
Exciting.
Who would have thought time slowed, not went so fast?
Exactly.
Time travels, baby. Time travels.
All right. So we're at the end. What do we have on store for next week, Dan?
Tracy Shields going to join us, and we're going to do a site study. Going to dig into a site and see what's going on out in the field and see how our technologies are being applied in the real world.
Cool. Very good. Well, we appreciate everybody joining us. We were hoping that we would have doubled our attendance today, but we're about exactly where we were last week. So we know we've got a very loyal following, but we would love to get more people involved. So talk about it in market, about it to customers or to colleagues, and get them to join us on Tuesdays for Tech Talk Tuesday. Go out and work hard, make something happen, get ready for spring. And if you need anything, let us know. Thank you.
Yep. And we'll leave you with this one quote here.
Hey, Doc, you better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads that we're going, we don't need.
Need roads.
Nice.
That's right.